Welcome to the last PFF Forecast of 2020. We're going to talk about the Week 17 games. This is going to be a quick, short, wonderful podcast. We might even get to, if we have time, the two college semifinal games. This is going to be fun. Let's rock. We've kind of been through the ringer this year. You know, like I remember about 5 years ago when we were both remote talking to each other from living rooms. At one point, my audio was so bad that people were complaining on Twitter.
I think we've changed job titles each like 3 times during this.
Well, it's just par for the course at PFF. But
we've
made it through. This is the craziest thing.
You lived in DC for like
5 months.
You've lived in DC for longer than like Trump has.
I've spent more days in D.C. during his presidency than he has.
Yeah.
This is not a political podcast, but that had to be mentioned. You have started even a New Year's resolution before New Year's, which is also impressive.
Mm-hmm.
You've gotten back into the gym, and word on the street is that you started squatting again. So congratulations to you.
I squat every single time.
Good for you. Yeah. I can tell. The hair does look better today.
Jeez. I was like, George, can you just help? If I'm starting to look like the Nutty Professor, you have to like.
It was late, okay?
It was late.
I do want to say, if anyone is looking for hair, if you didn't see Eric's hair, you're listening to the podcast, you didn't see it. It's worth checking out, but it reminded me of Steve Young on Monday Night Countdown. His hair is all over the place, and it's pretty funny. And I'm sad there won't be any more Monday Night Countdowns, but maybe on Sunday.
Remember, I always pull out the mathematician's exemption.
You can't do that for everything. There are plenty of mathematicians that have their shit together.
Yeah, and every once in a while, I don't.
Oh, every once in a while?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, all right, sure. We'll just forget that the socks and sweatpants thing happened.
Do I not have shoes on right now and jeans?
I got multiple messages about that.
Oh, really? Eric, why are you wearing?
What's wrong with Eric? Is everything okay with Eric? Is he all right?
There was a professor I had in grad school who never wore shoes, and it was.
He must have been a player.
Yeah.
Jesus. I don't know what I would do in that situation.
He was so eccentric that it was actually inspiring, really.
How
much he didn't care about certain things is inspiring.
But you too inspire me. One of the biggest upsets, though, is that we've made it all the way to Week 17, and there's no Week 18, and I think all the games are going to be played this week.
We don't have to reconfigure the simulation. We don't 8 teams. We don't get 8 playoff teams. All this kind of stuff. Biggest winners being Kansas City and Green Bay with the 1 seeds.
The Browns are doing their best, though. They've got a few issues. I think that game seems like it's on.
Well, you know who's been spending a lot of time in Cleveland?
Who?
Renner. Austin, did you account for this?
Rest in peace. No, Renner didn't die, but a part of him has died.
Yeah.
And for that, we mourn. Okay, let's get into this week.
Okay.
This is going to be a tricky one. I'd like to start off with Buffalo and Miami, though, because this line has moved a ton. It was 4.5 at one point, actually just yesterday, and I bet on Miami getting 4.5 points. Now it's down to 1.5. Do you have any confidence that the Bills are going to play this one through?
Well, I think it's sort of a kind of like a no you hang up type of situation where it's like Pittsburgh announces they're not playing their guys. Now Buffalo feels as though they can kind of, I think that's what the betting markets are sort of responding to. Mason Rudolph called the starter there. And so the only way that Buffalo doesn't get the 2 seed is if Cleveland melts down against a bunch of backups, which is certainly possible for sure. They just lost to the Jets.
Right.
But I think that's where everything is gravitating towards. It's the Bills probably would have played it through had Steelers played it through.
But then why aren't the Bills underdogs? Like, why are the Bills favored in this game then? Because Miami's no joke of a team.
Miami Miami is good, but I think so. This has some Vikings against Bears 2018 Week 17 vibes where there's nothing like. Dolphins are a good team, but like there's a ton of meltdown. Like, what's the chances Fitzpatrick plays in this game?
I would say 70%. I was thinking about that earlier.
Because if the Bills get out to like a 14-0 lead and then call off the dogs, is that an insurmountable lead for Tua to come back from? I think so.
Oh, come on. Against the Bills, Tua can put up 14 points.
But you know what I'm saying. Like
I think they will go to
part of the handicap.
Fitzpatrick. It was very interesting. I mean, listening to what Xavier Howard, who, by the way, is great on he's great at football, but also great on the mic. And the way that he talked about the quarterback situation, it was like you could kind of sense that there was – he didn't say this, but it was like, yeah, we know we need to do a lot to help the young quarterback out. He's improving. But also what Fitz does when he comes in there, it's magical. So – maybe they go to him a little earlier.
It's very clear that like everybody knows what everything's about. I don't think there are any Dolphins players who have come out and said we're winning the Super Bowl, but they're probably enjoying the ride that they're having. They probably also know as an organization that they already have a top 5 pick sewn up because of Houston. So there's really no like benefit to them just tanking out and missing the playoffs.
True.
But Tua's probably not their best option to make the playoffs. But Fitzpatrick's not their best option long term. So then that's how they're squaring this. I just see I think the reason why Buffalo, for one, they're at home, which man, I don't know, but they're at home. They're probably going to start their starters, much like they did last year against the Jets. When they had nothing to play for, they started their starters for like two quarters, and there could be an insurmountable lead that they get where the Dolphins can't come back.
I think the Miami Dolphins deserve a lot of credit and should win some awards here. I said at the beginning of the season that I thought Jalen Ramsey would win Defensive Player of the Year, and I think he has a really strong case. But Xavier Howard is the highest graded corner. 9 interceptions is impressive. What he's done against some really great competition, just like Jalen Ramsey has done, has been really impressive. The interception on Tyreek Hill may be the best interception when you account for who he was covering. So I think legitimately he should be. I think a couple of other guys have waned off. So I think Xavier Howard, Defensive Player of the Year, and then Coach of the Year, in my mind, is even more of a lock for Brian Flores. The way that he's handling the quarterback situation. This team, I think they're 10-5 against the spread this season, which is a really good measurement of how much you're beating expectations. And the fact that he has a defense that has played this well after being so bad earlier in the season, it's Belichickian to say the very least. So it's cool. Even if we don't bet on this game, I'll be rooting for the Dolphins.
We have some Dolphins to make the playoff futures, plus 400 in the offseason, plus 160 during the season. So I will also be rooting for the Miami Dolphins. Here's one that I'll ask you about because I think this is a spot that we've made lock of the week before this year. I like the Ravens laying 13 in our backyard over here.
So this has moved a little bit. That's
the Baltimore Ravens.
The only thing that gives me a little bit of pause, it was 11 and a half, and now it's 13. Now, is that moving on some of the injury news, or is that because Boyd is questionable with a concussion, Higgins is questionable with a hamstring. The Cincinnati Bengals have no reason to play anybody, right? Mixon is obviously
and they're probably feeling their oats after winning a couple games in a row. Brandon Allen was terrific against Houston.
Second highest graded, quarterback. I mean, he's been amazing.
Yeah.
I like this one a lot, and I'd like to consider it. If you look at just the ELO point differential between these two teams, it's about 11 points. And when you consider what the Baltimore Ravens have in terms of an advantage at some of those key situations, right? Quarterback, obviously, motivation, obviously, and motivation like in opposite directions. Like the Bengals don't care about kicking the Ravens out of the playoffs.
At this point, they should care about getting the best draft pick.
Yeah.
Like Zach Taylor's not about to be fired.
They are going to hang a banner for beating the Pittsburgh Steelers as 14-point underdogs in my honor. That made me feel more a part of Cincinnati.
We've both of us, I think, has never really adopted Cincinnati.
Stop it.
Until the Bengals beat the Steelers, right? That was when we became, what is it, Cincinnatians?
That's what you call it. Yeah.
So that's when we became Cincinnatians, I think.
I think actually you have to have Skyline Chili to fully.
Yeah. And I just
make it happen.
I don't know.
All right.
Has Austin had as Skyline Chili?
He looks like he has. I'm trying to get him to say something. I didn't know if that would work. Austin Gale is helping us out in the podcast. All right. I would like to consider that one. The only thing, like I said, is it's moved in Baltimore's direction. There's some question marks in the secondary around who will play. And total is 44.5, which is low for such a big
But I'll back this up. We talked about this with the NBC guys today. It was the last time the Baltimore Ravens faced the Cincinnati Bengals in this exact spot, they got beat. Like beat outright, right? And our first year picking games together, it was like, oh, there's no way the Ravens lose to the freaking Bengals. And that was when Andy Dalton's the quarterback. Tyler Boyd had the long touchdown. Buffalo goes crazy, all this kind of stuff. You got to think Harbaugh looking at Marlon Humphrey and being like, look, you got your ass kicked by Tyler Boyd on that play, right? Like all this kind of stuff. You got to think, because that game they had a multiple score lead for us, I believe, a part of that game, and they let Cincinnati back into it. I think if this game gets to 14, the probability of covering that number is like 85%, because I just think if Cincinnati can play them straight up, then this bet's in trouble. If there's any sort of period of time where Baltimore scores 2 scores in a row, it's over, in my opinion.
I will keep that one on the docket. Okay. The next one I want to go to, we actually talked about Minnesota-Detroit earlier. Maybe we'll save that one. I want to talk about Dallas-New York, because both these teams are playing for a chance to watch Sunday Night Football and root for Jalen Hurts. What a great opportunity. And if Jalen Hurts then beats the Washington football team, the winner of this game will be in the NFL playoffs, which is hilarious. The Dallas Cowboys.
I'm dead.
It's incredible, right? The Dallas Cowboys lost Dak Prescott, have Andy Dalton come in there, look like he's never played football for 2 games, and then somehow, some way, thanks to Dwayne Haskins not bothering to learn a playbook, are in a position.
They literally needed to win 3 consecutive games, 2 of them in which they were underdogs, and have Washington lose 2 consecutive games
after beating the Steelers.
Yeah.
Right. That was the kind
beating
of crazy
the Steelers
thing.
And beating the Niners in a relatively improbable game. Right, 2 defensive touchdowns. Alex Smith gets hurt.
I mean,
we pause for a second though? Is Dallas being in this position all that surprising in hindsight?
No. And in fact, I went back and I listened to our podcast the night that Dak Prescott got injured.
Yeah.
And we both said Dallas is still the most.
I have a futures bet on Dallas to win the NFL. They were the favorite when I bet it, and it's like, we now have Washington, which I think we want Washington because it's a better payout. But it's like we thought, because what is Dallas's characteristics right now? They have an okay quarterback. They have really good weapons. They have a crappy offensive line that they're working around, and they have a dog shit defense. Okay, that's not the worst thing that you can be in the NFL. In fact, if you look at Washington football team, I would rather be Dallas. I'd rather be crappy offensive line that Kellen Moore works around, great wide receivers who can get separation, a quarterback who's okay, and a defense that's a defense, rather than
that is a lot of praise. I got to be honest.
Rather than being Washington, who's got a great defense, who's got a good wide receiver who's hurt right now, the best player on their team is injured, a great offensive line, but who gives a fuck if you protect when the guy can't hit the broadside of a barn?
Well, Daniel Jones is banged up. I mean,
and he says he's playing from the pocket until he's healthy, God help us all.
The difference between these two teams, based on PFF ELO ranking, is 2.5 points. Spread is 2. The Dallas Cowboys over the last 8 weeks or so are a top 12 offense in expected points added per play. And we've seen over the last few weeks, they've been just fine throwing the ball down the football field. The New York Giants, on the other hand, over that same time span, are the 3rd worst offense in the NFL. Yeah. It's not pretty. So I really like the Dallas Cowboys here. Our model shows over a 1% edge in terms of covering this spread. And I'll point something else out. I think Andy Dalton, now I got into trouble the last time I said this, is being undervalued a little bit because of the scars that people have from him.
Yeah.
But this is a 1 p.m. game. I'm going to talk myself into Andy Dalton.
Yeah. I don't hate it at all. Somebody on Twitter said, when I said like the Joe Judge thing's going to look funny when they're 5-10 and all that stuff. And,
you taking Twitter victory laps?
After it happened, that he was like, yeah, but they're still playing a meaningful game in December. And I wanted, like, if you watch this Giants team, they have twice as many losses as they have wins. Like, this is...
The NFC sucks.
Yeah, but the Giants are...
Would you be in favor of not just doing away with every division winner gets a spot, but like a complete reseeding?
I'm in favor... So here's my thing. I'm in favor of a reseeding. I'm not in favor of... So... we talked about this. Like, it's a sport, so like it is like it. I don't care about unfairnesses at some level because they're not like societal problems. So it missed me that, but it's like I think if you win your division, you should get a playoff spot. I don't know if you should get a home game. That's where I might allow the line to be crossed. My issue is there are so many unfairnesses in the scheduling that just by hook or by crook, you could end up. So, like, the NFC East had to play the AFC North. Mm-hmm. So, you're playing 3 really good teams, whereas, I'm trying to think of another, whoever got to play the NFC East, right? Like, they're piling up. Like, the Rams, right, are a 5-win team if you take out the NFC
West got to play the
exactly.
NFC
So, you know what I'm saying? They had to play the 2 probably toughest conferences in football. Now, are they tough because they got to play the NFC East and their schedule is great? I actually think probably Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and Cleveland would be okay with normal schedules. Same thing with LA, San Francisco, Seattle, Arizona. But you see what I'm saying? Like, when you do that, you're losing structure when structure was the contribution to the issue in the first place.
I don't disagree with that.
I mean, I have a bigger moral issue, and maybe we could talk about this now. 17 games not being a fucking multiple of 2 next year, right? Like,
yeah,
the way that the schedule is works out in the NFL makes total and complete sense to me right now. I don't hate. Obviously, we want more football, so I don't care. But like, if anybody wants to say like, oh, this is unfair, like a 17-week schedule seems like, more of an unfairness possibility than anything.
We transition from the moral debate to the Atlanta Falcons.
No, stop. There's nothing moral about the Atlanta Falcons.
They are 6.5-point underdogs in Tampa Bay against the Bucs. So the Bucs still have theoretically something to play for.
Well, this is another one. So the fact that this game is at 1 and the LA versus Arizona game's at 4 means that Tampa's going to probably try to win this game. And given what Arians has said, which is we want the 11 wins, that means something to us, and also the 5 seed we need to lock that up, the fact that they have a tiebreaker loss with LA, and if LA were to beat Arizona, they would lose the 5 seed and have to play Seattle in all likelihood.
Going from playing in Seattle against Seattle to playing potentially in Dallas against Dallas.
Or in fucking New York against the Giants. Like,
right. Washington as well. I mean, any of those teams is.
So they'll play through. Atlanta could be competitive against them anyway. They were competitive against Kansas City on the road last week in a game that Kansas City needed. I think a decent amount of that was Kansas City playing poorly, but you look at the Falcons, there's a lot to like. I mean, Deion Jones is great. Foye Oluokun's great. I'm not doing this, though. Sorry.
I was going to say, a lot to like? No.
The Falcons have a positive point differential this year.
A lot to like. Man, I love the Falcons in this spot. Now, a lot to like about the Falcons is still really generous, but here's the biggest point that I would make. They are very incentivized, I think, especially in the positions that matter, to win this game and not have a really high draft pick. I don't think Matt Ryan wants to get traded and go somewhere else. Like, I think he wants to show Atlanta and Atlanta ownership that, like, let's go draft someone that can help this team out. Let's get a coach in here that knows what they're doing, and let's go win some football games. And if they can beat the Tampa Bay Bucks, that I'm telling you, man, they would be talking about that like
Well, they're a franchise that does
time.
this thing, right? And I misspoke. Atlanta's been outscored by 1 point this year, so they have this. Basically, they have a 500 record in the Pythagorean thing. But still, Raheem Morris, former Bucks coach, summarily dismissed a year after being 10-6. Revenge game for him. Obviously, he's 4-6 this year. A 5-6 looks a lot better on his resume than 4-7 does. And to your point, when you think about the Falcons can't really draft a quarterback this year unless they're willing to sit him for at least a year. And the reason being is that Matt Ryan's contract puts him in a tough spot. They also have a very tough cap situation, right? They're one of the 5 or 6 teams that's below the projected cap, and they don't really have players other than possibly Jake Matthews, who they could get rid of to get under that. So they're in dire straits. If they were to move on from Matt Ryan, they would almost have to do it pre-draft, right? Mm-hmm. And to do it pre-draft would probably require them to give up a draft pick to give up Matt Ryan because of the salary that the other team would take on in a year when the salary cap is going to be lower. A team is going to be less likely to take on a Stafford, a Matt Ryan, because of the cap situation that the entire league is in. So they're in a tough spot. If they do that and give up a pick, that's a pick they can't use to trade up from, let's say, 4 to 3 to ensure that they get one of the top 3 guys. So they're in a rough spot. Winning this football game, in many ways, in a weird way, makes their decision process easier, right? They can take one of the top 3 wide receivers, Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, or Devontae Smith, and not necessarily have to deal with the awkwardnesses of the Matt Ryan quarterback situation.
Can we just talk about something real quick? Nothing would be cooler than Julio, Calvin Ridley,
and one of those 3 guys.
Jalen Waddle.
Yeah.
Alabama trio.
Yeah.
Just how fun would that be?
Or Devontae Smith. I mean, Devontae Smith is literally going to set the record for most wins above average for a non-quarterback.
He's awesome too. Get both.
Yeah,
but they need to lean all in to Matt Ryan is a good quarterback. Get a good offensive coach in there, which they just have not had since Kyle Shanahan. The last time they had a good offensive coach was Kyle Shanahan, and they went to the fucking Super Bowl.
Yeah,
like the offensive
and there's
pieces
enough
are there.
There's enough there, right? There's enough.
Calvin Ridley is what, a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL?
Yeah, Ridley, Julio, and Jalen Waddle or whomever would be the best 3 wide receivers in football. And the thing is, you have an opportunity to do this, right? Like there's Arthur Smith, there's Joe Brady, there's Derek Bieniemy, there's a number of coaches, even he's actually looked pretty bad in our play caller rankings, but Josh McDaniel has once been a good offensive coordinator in the league.
What about Brian Daboll?
Yeah, I mean, here's my thing with Daboll. Okay, Daboll. I was actually talking this through. Arthur Smith is a good card counter. Mm-hmm. He's terrible at basic strategy. His run pass ratio is garbage, but his plays are good.
Yep.
Brian Daboll's plays aren't that good, but the guy passes the ball he pushes the level of optimality of run pass ratio.
The Bills pass the ball over expectation more than any other team.
Exactly. So for him, he just and look, that's an edge in the NFL currently because, I mean, gestures at everything, right? Like that's an edge in the NFL, but I don't know. Whereas I think Joe Brady is legitimately a genius. So I was going back and because I was voting on
what week did we say that?
Week 3.
10 weeks ago where we were like...
But Bridgewater is still 7.6 yards per pass attempt, which is top, third of the league, and he's not good, guys. And, I was actually doing... So, the LSU offensive coordinator in 2018 was dead-ass average, 74th in college football in basically EPA above what you expect from the players on your team. Joe Brady was first in 2019, 2 standard deviations better than what you would expect out of even those players. Jefferson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jamar Chase, yada, 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 Thaddeus Moss.
Did you mention Clyde Edwards-Helaire and not Joe Burrow?
Joe Burrow, yeah. And he's currently the top play caller in our rankings as well. So you have a change of scenery. You have a change of players. You have the same production from him. he, to me, is the most deserving person of a job. Now, it might be tough to get him out of the division, but he's got the freedom to sign the deal, right? And there's not really any – this is why signing a defensive coach or a coach who isn't the brilliant offensive play caller is tricky, because there's the Panthers don't have a whole lot of power over Joe Brady to keep him from going to the Falcons and making them a Super Bowl.
The Panthers are going to be the Falcons in 4 years with Matt Rule and the Art Schmock. The Schmock is going to be running around. They're not going to be very good. And Joe Brady, every team that needs a head coach should be building a gift basket that has stacks of $100 bills, a Rolex, whatever the hell his favorite things are, putting it in a private jet that is also his, and flying it to Carolina and saying, please come be our coach. Period. Yeah. The Houston Texans should be doing that as well. Okay, let's consider the Falcons. Let's move on to another game. What do you want to talk about next? Joe Brady, Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, Jalen Waddle.
Here's the upset special of the week.
Are we moving to Atlanta? PFF headquarters in Atlanta? The PFF Falcons, finally.
Come and get your boy.
You're welcome. Our buddy John, who I hope is listening to this podcast, will appreciate that.
John's great. Here's the upset special of the week. I think you know.
The upset stomach special of the week is actually here in Cincinnati.
Scotland, Chile, yeah. I feel like Gold Star feels left out that we never make fun of them.
Oh, do you?
Houston wins outright this week, I feel like, just to fuck everything up.
Okay. Yes and no. How much are you taking away from what you saw in Green Bay with Tennessee? Because to me, this is a classic spot. Not that I want to bet on the Titans. I think it's a teasable game.
Oh. So I can see a situation where the Titans get out ahead and Houston's by midway through the second quarter. It's just we're out of here. And Derrick Henry runs for 300 yards because they need to hang a banner. 2,000-yard rusher. The Titans would be the first team in league history to have two of them. So that's what's tough. That being said, Deshaun Watson has put together some pretty good performances this year against teams with something to play for, especially within the division. So both games against Indy were down to the wire. The first game the first game in Tennessee, where Henry ran for 200 yards, they should have won. I mean, they're a missed 2-point conversion away from winning that football game, a coin flip away. So my only issue is Watson's elbow, motivation for Houston. I just don't know. I mean, I could see this thing going pear-shaped really quickly.
I am stunned. I am floored, shocked to shit that the city of Houston, the mayor of Houston,
hasn't intervened,
has not said you cannot play Deshaun Watson in this game.
We have nothing as far as assets are concerned.
Can you imagine playing Deshaun Watson in this game? I can't. If I were the owner of the Houston Texans, I would take Deshaun Watson. I would say, look, buddy, I bought you an island. Thank you for somehow being the second highest graded quarterback in the NFL without anybody. Go there. Do not play in this game. By the way, he almost tore his UCL. He could have Tommy John. He could have been out in next year too.
Watson passed up Mahomes as the second most valuable player in the NFL this year.
He's been amazing.
Yeah.
Here's the craziest thing that in looking at this game and figuring out whether I wanted to take the Texans or not. Watson has a slightly higher grade than Ryan Tannehill, but given how successful the Titans have been on offense, and they have the most efficient passing offense using EPA per play, which one of these two do you think would have the higher passer rating from a clean pocket? You'd say Tannehill,
yeah.
Right? Just look at the Titans. It's not. It's Watson. That, I think, is such a credit to Deshaun Watson because he is without DeAndre Hopkins. He's now without Will Fuller. He's without a head coach. He's without an offensive line. He's without a defense. They have nothing there, and he is still managing to be absolutely excellent. I'll consider the Houston Texans. But I also would like us to keep the Titans in as a tease.
Here's what I'll say. Here's what I'll say. I think Atlanta Houston's a fun parlay to have.
Oh, buddy.
But I don't think it's a
fun one in theory that you tell your friends about, and then on Monday
Yeah, it's sort of like
you
betting
drink
a
about.
team like 50-1 to win the Super Bowl. You're not all that upset when it doesn't happen, right? But it was a long shot. Okay, here's one. This hedges a few of our preseason bets. Raiders -2.5 in Denver against Drew Lock.
I cannot find any reason not to love this game.
Yeah. I mean,
Drew Lock is bad. He's not very good.
like the receivers for Denver are
Jerry
great.
Jeudy's out here making the best corners in the NFL fall down. He made Xavier Howard turn around on a slant route that Drew Lock summarily overshot. It's impressive, honestly.
He's
The number of people that are standing for the Drew Lock experience blows my mind.
Drew Lock. Okay, so here's what I'll say, and this is resulting a little bit. The only thing that he has in common with Josh Allen is that he doesn't know that he's
white
bad.
and he's from the Midwest.
Well, he doesn't know that he's bad. So like Josh Allen, when he was bad, still had a great attitude, right? Like, and I think we're gonna look back at Josh Allen and try to reverse engineer every single reason why we were wrong about him. And I think some people, and again, I think it's noise, so I'm not trying to say that's going to be a thing. But people are going to look at Drew Lock and see like him, rapping on the sideline and being like kind of oblivious to how bad he is and all this kind of stuff, and say that's the next Josh Allen, right?
Oh,
Like
absolutely. Josh Allen did more for Drew Lock than he did for Josh Allen this year.
Yeah. That and I want to sort of fade that narrative because I don't think it's real.
I couldn't agree more. I also think that Josh Allen, Josh Allen has a different level of athleticism than Drew Lock does by a pretty sizable order of magnitude. And I don't know why that isn't factored in. Like, Josh Allen is closer to like Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes type athleticism. And
athletic, yeah.
and like the ability
But
to
Drew
throw.
Lock's passing efficiency in a SEC school as a senior and junior was better than Josh Allen's in the Mountain West. Like,
Sure.
there are some reasons to be like,
Yeah, they were both also very inaccurate throwing the ball. I get it.
There are some reasons to be like, look, Drew Lock has less far to go, but what you really should say, but I guess what we should really be saying is, look, just because you bet on green in the roulette and it won once, don't try to like back engineer the reason why you did it. Just like go back to not betting roulette at all because it's dumb. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I think Josh Allen is going to elicit a lot more. We should have had uncertainty in our models to begin with, right? And Josh Allen, that should be the what we learned from Josh Allen. We shouldn't be learning anything from Josh Allen about specific other players. Like, I just that kind of thing irritates me a little.
I love the Raiders -2.5 in Denver. Kind of a high total also for a Denver Broncos team, to be honest.
I think if it gets to 51.5, we might like the under.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning that way. Let's see here. Were there any others before we decide? I don't know, man. This is a tough week. I think I've run through the games.
We have to. I think we stick with games where both teams have the same thing to play for.
Should we talk a little bit then about football team versus the Eagles?
Yeah, football team getting a little bit of money here. That was a pick to start the week. It's now -1.5. We have football team with the third best defense in the NFL, 26th best offense. I have Alex Smith in the model. So
Taylor Heineke taking first team reps. I think that's what makes this hard to bet. If it's Taylor Heineke,
can we I think we come up for air after 3 weeks of Jalen Hurts and I think both of us were right.
What do you mean?
Well, so
I don't know what you even ever said.
Jalen Hurts breathed a measure of life into Philly, which I think was your take, which was good. But it still wasn't enough for Philadelphia to have team-level success with because they're still bad, right? Which is ultimately what happened. I think in the Dallas game, he played as well. Like the last 3 games, he played very well. in games where they were playing a team that was ahead of them, he had to be desperate. And there were really encouraging aspects of his play, but there were also the turnover-worthy things that come with being a rookie quarterback in the NFL.
I never said he was even a top half of the league quarterback.
Yeah. So I think because I think a lot of people were buying into Jalen Hurts as like, after the game against New Orleans and then the game against Arizona, where you saw a lot of fun stuff, but you also saw the sacks and turnovers. That was why they were favored on the road against Dallas. And it's like, in hindsight, that was probably a little bit too aggressive.
I watched that game and I saw one of the worst play calling displays I've seen in a very long time.
I mean,
the defense was, that was an atrocity.
Right.
They should have done the same thing to Dallas that Dallas did to them, and for some reason they just decided not to. So they played Jordan Howard, which is basically an admission.
He was wearing Carell Buckhalter's 28, which was,
it was incredible. But I'll say this: I still think that if I had to pick one quarterback in the NFC East to win me a game, that's the guy I would choose.
I agree. I think Dalton's close though.
To win you a game that everyone's watching.
Do you think that the Eagles clean house?
No.
Okay.
I don't.
Do you think the game on Sunday night changes any of it?
No.
Okay.
You think if they get blown out,
I think if they get blown out.
Doug Peterson's made the playoffs 3 straight years, won a Super Bowl 3 years ago.
I also think like that tension that was created by early success and then disappointments so they made the playoffs the last 3 years, but all 3 years were disappointing. I feel like there might be a chance, and I do think if they lay an egg,
he had to put up with Carson Wentz as well.
That's what I'm saying. But Carson Wentz isn't going anywhere. This could be. Remember when Jim Harbaugh left the Niners and it was called a mutual parting? Like I feel like that could be the situation where it's like Doug looks at the thing and he's like, well, there's a lot of head coaching jobs available. I have a Super Bowl.
Yeah, let me get out of here.
No one's ever found.
That would be interesting.
People haven't found me. Like, look, let's assume he's good. But if we assume for a second that he's not good, he might be thinking to himself, and he knows this in the bottom of back of his mind. He's like, I can do what Chip Kelly did. I can go somewhere, get another X number of years on my deal in case I get fired right away, and then I got the guaranteed money for X number of years. Like that, I think there could be a mutual parting of ways because he looks at the cap situation, he looks at the Carson Wentz situation, he looks at the fact that they can't seem to figure out injuries on that team, and
So you're saying that Doug Peterson would be like, yeah, I'm out. I think that's a great call because how many of the teams that need a head coach would you rather be the coach of than the Eagles?
A lot
of them, right? So Atlanta.
Yeah, Atlanta and Houston are in similar. Atlanta's not dysfunctional, but they have some problems.
They do. I would still rather coach Atlanta than Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Houston, no brainer.
No doubt about it.
Because of Deshaun Watson. The
Jaguars. Jaguars are a good spot. Jaguars have the most cap space going into next year, plus the first overall pick.
Trevor Lawrence. The Jets is an interesting one.
So if he goes to the Jets, I think it's like Chip Kelly all over again. Where he goes to a franchise as a big name coach and everybody gets kind of excited for a little bit and then kind of, it
dissipates a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's a very interesting take.
I'll be interested to see how hard Philly plays in this game. I don't think it'll be that. I think that they're going to come out flat. And Washington is going to, put it like. Can you imagine if you get beat by Taylor Heineke at home in Week 17 in front of a live studio audience? Like this is.
I can't honestly.
It's like
I can. I'm really worried about the Washington football team offensively, but the Eagles made.
Who do the Eagles go after post Peterson? Who is that job attractive? I don't think so.
That's a great question, man.
Rich Kotite, you think?
It's not an attractive spot.
Yeah, it's not.
Walking in and having to deal with Carson Wentz
and the cap,
not attractive. Yeah, that's very interesting. They could be. But it's the NFL. Maybe they go to the college.
Well, it's a marquee media.
Yeah. What about Harbaugh?
Michigan's not an attractive job anymore.
Is there a tie? Because Harbaugh's a man of faith. He and Carson Wentz, men of faith.
I once read something that Jim Harbaugh during his bachelor party was, you know how when you play laser tag, and laser tag sucks. So you're just going through
Laser tag sucks?
Yes.
What? What do you mean laser tag sucks?
So like there
laser
are
tag
things,
is awesome.
There are things about bachelor parties that are fun.
I wouldn't play laser tag at a bachelor party.
And there are things about a bachelor party that suck. When one of my best friends got married, we did four-wheeler riding through like the desert in Vegas. It sucked. It was a terrible thing, but you do it for your friend.
Yeah.
What do you call it?
You're telling me you were in Vegas for a bachelor party. And you're like, yeah, let's just.
And I singed my ankles on a
let's
freaking.
just go burn to death in the dunes with a bunch of dudes.
I literally, when I took my helmet off, my neck was like so freaking stiff because I was so nervous I was gonna flip that motherfucker. And I signed enough sheets where it's happened before. Let's just
your
put it that
family
way.
would have been okay.
Yeah, and like. And laser tag is one of those, again, where you're just going through the motions. If somebody says, hey, I want to do laser tag, you're like, you do it, but you go through the motions. Apparently, Jim Harbaugh systematically ended everybody's life in this laser tag game. Like he did the strategy. He pinpointed like a 10-year-old girl and just repeatedly shot her for the points.
Where did you hear this?
I read it on like Pro Football Talk or something, and they were making fun of him for how savage the guy is.
Yeah, at laser tag. That's incredible, man. Do you think he wore he didn't wear khakis because he was worried he'd be more easily to be
probably
seen? Like it was the only time he's ever worn black pants.
Yeah. The black light too on the khakis, probably not good.
Yeah, right. Not a good look for Harbaugh. That's incredible. When was the last time you played laser tag?
The time, 2013 or something.
Oh, you did it at that bachelor party?
No, it was prior to that. It was the same friend. He likes to do a lot of those things.
Last time I played laser tag, I was in 5th grade.
Yeah.
Okay, let's pick a lock of the week.
Okay.
We've got Baltimore minus 13.
Mm-hmm.
We have the Falcons plus 6.5. We have the Texans plus 7.5. The Raiders minus 2.5.
I actually want something outside of that. I want Dallas minus 2.5.
Oh, and Dallas minus 2.5. I don't hate it.
We went into this year not we're rooting for.
You remember when we talked to Kevin Clark?
Yeah.
You guys were both like, I don't know. I think they go over 9.5. We were optimistic.
None of us bet 9.5 because it was our model.
It was minus 155. Too.
Yeah, but we're fans of what Dallas, at least in theory, was doing. Now a lot of that hasn't materialized, but it does. I do think that they go into this game as an NFL team, and their opponent doesn't.
It's very compelling.
The Giants stink, dude.
I can't believe that I'm saying this, but I feel better about the Falcons than I do Andy Dalton.
I'm really concerned about the motivation aspect with one team in, one team out. That's why Houston and Atlanta, for me, are tough.
Okay. I can roll with Dallas. I'll also bet Atlanta, and I will also be betting probably on Houston as well.
Yeah.
I think those are definitely bettable games.
Here's a long shot money line that I like as well for the people for the road. I like the Jets plus 150
against the Patriots.
Yeah, the corpse of Newton's past.
Yeah, that's a good one. The total there is 39.5. I kind of like the over in that as well.
So you think the Jets are scoring 40 points?
Yeah, I think Stidham is playing, and it's a
dump off fest.
Yeah.
Oh.
39.5 in 2020.
Poor James White.
All right, that was our show. By the way, next week we are going to do a playoff preview. If you were with us through 2020, you know that from the comfort of our own homes, we did a podcast with Evan Silva, Josh Hermsmeyer, Kevin Cole, and Timo Riske, and we redrafted the NFL from scratch. That was a lot of fun. And we're going to get the band back together, and we're going to do a playoff preview, I think, at least. So people have said. Josh is on a boat in Miami right now, so we'll see. Maybe we'll go to the boat in Miami. What do you think about that?
Look, if we can get on that boat, even in spirit, I think we have to try.
I'm on it every day in spirit.
True.
All right. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you guys in 2021. Is that the most overused line out there? Yes, it probably is. See ya.